On this episode of the Oklahoma Breakdown with Ikard and Lehman, presented by Riverwind Casino. Signing day is Wednesday, so Josh McCuistion joins us to talk about OU's 2023 recruiting class, and we give you the latest OU football news. We finish up giving you our winners and losers of the weekend. Please download and subscribe to the podcast, rate it 5 stars, and write us a good review. Follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search Oklahoma Breakdown on any of those, and you'll find us. All right, our man Michael Hosty will kick this thing off. It's time for the Oklahoma Breakdown. It's a beautiful Monday, December 19th, and you're listening to the Oklahoma Breakdown with Ikard and Lehman, presented by Riverwind Casino. Riverwind is Oklahoma City's premier casino experience, and there are so many reasons why Riverwind is consistently voted OKC's #1 casino, but it all starts with their amazing variety of gaming thrills and excitement. Riverwind's beautiful award-winning environment plays host to more than 2,800 of the latest electronic games with a huge selection of table games, including blackjack, blackjack match, roulette, and Teddy's favorite, craps. No matter what your game, Riverwind has it in spades and hearts. And to learn more about Riverwind's promotions and entertainment options in the month of December, all you got to do is visit riverwind.com. Riverwind Casino, simply the best. Now recording this Sunday afternoon, recording a little earlier than normal. We got some holiday stuff done tonight. Yeah, the schedule's full, man. Got just full slate. Please leave us a 5-star review and a nice comment. Ted, how we doing, man?
Fantastic. Cannot complain. Excellent weekend. Some good sports going on. I'm doing great.
As mine. Now we've got our buddy Josh McCuistion from Soonerscoop.com to take a deep dive into OU's 2023 recruiting class. Can you believe signing day is on Wednesday?
Nuts. It's crazy. It's one of those things, and I think I've made this comment before. It feels like it's so far away, and then all of a sudden it's right on top of you, and it's like, oh my God, I'm not prepared for this.
There's just too much in one short period of time. There's just too much. They got to do something about it.
End of the year, bowl stuff, signing day, transfer portal. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Now, we're not coaches, so it makes our job easy.
Right.
Yes, we got all kinds of stuff to talk about, but man, it is a busy time. So let's get to it, man. And this is something that with all the stuff on here that we talk about on here, it gets lost, right? And I think this is something that gets lost just in college football in general now, because we're always talking about transfer portal, NIL, recruiting rankings, obviously the games, everything going on. But congrats to all the guys that graduated this weekend. It's a big deal, man. Getting that piece of paper is a huge accomplishment. And I know that the education component of things certainly feels like it is completely overshadowed by like every other aspect of the sport now. But when you talk about how important it is for setting you up for the rest of your life, it's a huge deal. So congrats to those guys.
Yep, it is. It's big. You graduate, you get that behind you. You can move on, and a lot of guys continue to track down going after extended education, and that's a great way to do it as well. But it is nice to be able to get that done, kind of get it behind you. It's a big accomplishment, and then you could really start to hone in on what your next like major focus is going to be.
Yeah, and everyone knows that Ted Lehman was a big school guy, huge school guy. They said
loved it.
There's some stories that we won't that I've been told over the years, but we won't get into those. Okay, so on our last episode, we talked about the report from Brett McMurphy that there was momentum for OU in Texas to go to the SEC in 2024. There is now some more reporting on that from CBS's Dennis Dodd. So here's a quote from his article. Quote, would include Big 12 rights holders being made whole with a series of future non-conference games involving those teams within the league's footprint. So, Ted, this is how I understand the logic. OU and Texas leaving early would reduce the viewership of Big 12 games in 2024, clearly because they are the biggest brands in the Big 12 conference. So to make up for that, OU and Texas would have to play some future non-conference games on the road at Big 12 schools. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, I think. One of the things that I think is interesting, and we talked about this, Bedlam. OSU was clearly wanted to move on from that, and I can totally understand their reasoning. But the network folks involved realize that is a big game that gets a lot of ratings, one of the heaviest betted, wagered on games in all of college football. I think that may have something to do with it as well. Continuing Bedlam.
Yeah, and I think if you look at, let's say that this ends up being the deal, right? That in order for OU and Texas to leave early, they've got to go play a couple of Big 12 opponents on the road. The top one that OU fans would want to go play would be Bedlam, right?
Well, I don't know if
I'd rather go play in Stillwater than go play TCU or you know what I mean?
No, I agree. But I'm just telling you right now, there's going to be a huge group of OU fans that don't want to, if we are going to almost pity game this thing, okay, we'll play you guys. We're moving on to the SEC, but we have to play you guys. There's going to be a group of fans that would rather go to Ames or wherever than have the pity game with OSU. Now, I'm not saying that's right, but there will be a large group in the fan base that feels that way about it.
I would rather it with how things are looking for Oklahoma State right now.
Yes,
with the current situation of that roster, what they ended up looking like in the back half of the season, all the guys that they have in the portal. Give me Oklahoma State and Stillwater.
I agree 100%. I agree.
And I know there's another full season in between now and then, but the thing about there were not any details about how many games or when those games would be played. And Dennis Dodd in his article, he said, hey, we don't know when or how many. So yeah. Realistically, for this to make sense for Oklahoma, how many games are we talking here? You know what I mean? Is this okay, you're going to have to do 2 of them? All right. 2 road games at Big 12 schools over a couple of years, fine, whatever. If we're talking 6, that doesn't make much sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Is it just through the end of what the original contract would have been? I don't know how they negotiate that out, but I feel like the Big 12 I feel like they're getting a hell of a deal here if this happens. All right. OU and Texas are leaving. All right. They've already signed a new rights deal or have negotiated a new rights deal. They're going to be making more money than they were previously. They've added some good. They've already got a really good group that's coming in as a replacement. And now they're also going to continue to hold OU and Texas to the fire and get some future inventory, television inventory. It's a heck of a deal.
It's so good for the Big 12. You almost wonder, why would OU and Texas do that?
I know. I don't know.
And maybe there's more to it. We just don't understand it. Right. But you look at Dennis Dodd's article, and the interesting part, if OU and Texas want to make the move to the SEC in the summer of 2024, you look at the Big 12 bylaws, the contract, how it's written, they have to give 18 months notice, right? If they're going to leave early. So that would be like they have to let him know in the next couple of weeks. Right now, I know that maybe some type of deal can be made or something like that, but
didn't they already tell them though?
They told him they weren't going to renew the grant of rights. They haven't said, "Hey, we're leaving early."
Okay.
Or at least that's how I understood. Once again, I'm dumb, so who knows? But just from everything I've read, because in that article, Dennis Dodd is talking about how OU will still owe the Big 12 a termination fee for leaving, and it would be like $84 million if they gave 18 months notice essentially now. Right. So all I know is lawyers are going to make a lot of money in this whole thing, but that number, the anticipation would be that number would be negotiated down pretty significantly when it comes to the exit fee. And that's why like it would all work together being offset with some games. Essentially, I guess that's how this whole thing's supposed to work. It's like, hey, the exit fee comes down, you give us some games. So the television partners, especially Fox, are happy with everything. I don't know. It seems like a lot of moving parts, man.
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand it. Like it's 84 million if you give 18 months notice. What is it if you don't give 18 months notice?
Like you can't just leave early, I guess. I don't know if there's an extra penalty or what. Because remember, the plan right of now is, hey, you're leaving when
they've been talking
rights...
about this fee for leaving early since the thing was originally announced.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't you just do it then? I don't know. That seems strange, but I don't know. I don't know enough about like the loopholes or whatever it is in the I guess my whole line of thinking is if a conference has added teams that are already starting this next season, they've added teams, they're already starting, they've already negotiated a new media rights deal. The new media rights deal is better than the old media rights deal. They're making more money. I would have a hard time trying to convince a judge that I've been put in a disadvantageous position by OU and Texas leaving whenever I'm now making more money than I was previously. That doesn't jibe very well with me. That's the whole argument.
Yeah,
but
it was just an interesting follow-up to Brett McMurphy's initial report. Basically was like, hey, there are a lot of obstacles.
Yeah.
I think those obstacles are a little more clear now with some of the stuff that Dennis Dodd has put out there. Here's the quote right from the article. It says Texas and Oklahoma would at least owe the Big 12 a termination fee for leaving early. The contract states any school departing early owes 2 years worth of revenue. Using an average annual figure of $42 million, the Big 12 could reap as much as $168 million if Texas and Oklahoma give notice to the league 18 months in advance.
That's crazy. Now, here's the one thing we do have to remember. OU and Texas were not, this wasn't supposed to be public news until Texas A&M made it public news, right? Like that's the one thing you have to remember is like they were doing this thing, they were moving along behind the scenes, probably trying to position themselves properly to where whenever the time came, they would be able to make the announcement, plan to leave early, inform the Big 12 to where it all lined up time-wise. And then Texas A&M just went in and, pulled the pin on the grenade, tossed it in the room and left. Right.
That's a good way of putting it. But yeah, so just, I don't know I still think they're going to be in the SEC in 2024. I don't have any type of inside information. I think this is a pretty safe assumption though. If that does happen, it's going to be rather complicated.
Yeah. But hey, if we're talking about, sounds like more good non-conference games, which I'm up for.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to complain about OU, TCU, or Bedlam, or OU, Texas Tech. Like, sign me up. Why not?
Now, I still wish we were playing Georgia next year.
Yeah.
But
that'd be cool. Well,
maybe, maybe not.
I was about to say, I wish is not the word I would use.
Thought of being able to play a team like Georgia is something to be excited about.
Yes, but if maybe build the roster a little more before we take the Bulldogs on. Once again, not scared, just realistic about Georgia's situation compared to Oklahoma's currently.
That's right.
We'll get the Dogs here in a couple of years. It's fine. It's fine. All right. A couple other things. Nick Evers. I know that there was a rather strong reaction when he jumped in the transfer portal. He's going to Wisconsin. An interesting landing spot, right? Luke Fickell taking over there. Graham Mertz, who's been the starting quarterback, jumped in the transfer portal. Seems like a good landing spot for Nick Evers. And this is just how it's going to be, man. Whether it's fair or not to Nick Evers and Jackson Arnold, like, these guys are going to be compared, right? OU fans are going to monitor how things go for Evers there at Wisconsin. And those two guys are always going to be compared by, just based on their performance, and may not be fair to either of them, but that's just the way the world works.
Yeah, it is. I think Evers going to Wisconsin is, I think that's a good school. It's a good place to go. They're going to be led by a really good coach. It's had a lot of success. It's got a great fan base. They played in some really cool games. I think that's a good landing spot for Nick Evers. We'll see how he develops. Don't know a whole heck of a lot about, the offense that they're going to install up there at Wisconsin. Traditionally, it's always kind of been the same thing. Now, I wonder if that is going to carry on. Be interesting to see. But I think it's a good landing spot. But you're right. I mean, ultimately, that's just what happens. If he goes and lights it up, everyone's going to be saying, like, how big of a mistake it was for us. If he goes and doesn't have as much success, everyone's going to say that, we obviously made a great move with Jackson Arnold. It's just, that's the nature of the business, unfortunately.
Yeah, with Phil Longo ending up at Wisconsin. Remember, he left North Carolina to be the new OC at Wisconsin. It's going to look a lot different there offensively, man.
That's another Leech Tree guy. So it's fascinating to see what parts he kind of keeps of Wisconsin's, like, what they're known for, because they spit out a ton of offensive linemen, great line of scrimmage players, really on both sides, because of kind of what they've always done. Now they've changed throughout the years, obviously a little bit to stay modern, but I mean, that's a run heavy football team that is really built around their offensive line. See how it continues.
Yeah. If Phil Longo can blend the two, right, kind of play to the strengths that roster has right now. Now, of course, maybe they change their recruiting philosophy a little bit. Everyone wants to get more as dynamic as they can at the skill positions. But when you talk about just what it's going to look like, I'm so curious what Wisconsin's offense is going to look like next season.
I know.
Like,
you should be able to blend it. I mean, you could take good passing concepts and blend that in with good running concepts that are big, heavy power football. Like you don't have to be, like, most good offenses are a balance of those things. I mean, there's some people that don't have the ability to build the offensive line and from the inside out, that depend more through the air and through getting it to skill players. But the teams that do both typically have a really, really nice mix. And ultimately that's what you should strive for.
Yeah. I'm just imagining, like, RPO game with 7 offensive linemen on the field. It's going to be gorgeous.
I know it.
You're going to be angry because an extra offensive lineman's going to be blocking a back or 4 yards down the field.
Yeah. Well, It's just the world I have to live in until they take a look at the rules and wonder why are we doing something that makes no sense at all, which will never happen.
You're right. It won't. Okay, one last thing. Trace Ford took a visit to Norman and got quite the backlash for it. Some Oklahoma State fans were not happy at all. And this is a guy that he's had injury issues, right? He's missed a lot of football games, but you can never have too many guys that can rush the passer, right? Huh? What do you think? You think, and we'll see what Trace Ford ends up deciding, but you think he'd be a good fit in Venables' defense?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, Trace Ford, healthy. He's really good athlete, good at the point of attack, has some nice pass rush ability. Yeah, I think now, do I think that he's someone that would end up being the cornerstone that you build around? It's hard to say, honestly. We just got to see where his health is, where his development is. But I think healthy Trace Ford right now, after the season that we saw from Grimes or from Downs, I think he can be every bit of that good, perhaps better. He doesn't have the size of either one of those guys, but I think he makes up for that with like more agility and maybe a little bit hotter off the football.
The thing that you and I discussed throughout the season, now our Mason Thomas was one guy where sometimes you just kind of know what it looks like from a pass rushing perspective. Mm-hmm. And our Mason Thomas has twitch, right? The suddenness, whatever word you want to use. And Trace Ford, when healthy, I feel like you always got to throw that qualifier in there. He's got some of that, right? I mean, you go back and you think about how good he looked as a freshman. You're like, this guy's going to be a star. Well, injuries are the worst, and they seem to have derailed a very promising career up to this point for Trace Ford. But he does have twitch, man. He's got suddenness, and that's just – we have not seen a ton of that from Oklahoma's defensive line this year, especially those edge positions. I mean, you think about how Ethan Downs and Reggie Grimes kind of rush in general. It's more, speed to power. There's very little, oh man, hey, you beat him clean with the sweet inside mid. Like there's just not a lot of that. So if he can just bring that and be a situational pass rusher, right, coming in obvious pass situations, then it's certainly worth taking a look at, man. Now, yeah. I'm sure he's going to have plenty of offers and plenty of options, but you need guys that can rush the passer. And when healthy, Trace Ford can absolutely do that.
Yeah. Right now, I'd say we are incredibly thin at experienced edge guys. I think that we've got some younger guys that, I still consider Downs young. He just finished his true sophomore year. Like he needs to make a massive leap between right now and next year. Massive. And I think he's capable of doing that. But we just true pass rushers right now. Because Downs is not I don't classify him as a pass rusher. I don't classify Grimes as a real pass rusher either. He had that little push-pull move that worked really well early in the season, but didn't have a whole lot of success after that with it. I mean, our Mason Thomas is our only real true pass rusher. Now, with McCullough, that changes. Our Mason Thomas is going to have another year to develop his skills, but we're still what I would consider to be very light in that spot right now.
Yeah. No, so it's certainly an interesting discussion, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. We have not had a Oklahoma State guy come to Oklahoma.
Not that I know of. I mean, I'm sure there's
certainly not in the portal era.
Right. No, not
because I feel like we would remember and we would have talked about it on here
for sure.
So this could be that'd be an interesting situation. But you need pass rushers any way you can get them. So that's definitely a story that we'll continue to monitor. All right, let's get to call your shot. We asked you guys the most important thing for OU football that happened this weekend, and this first one comes from Boomer Bowtie, who says, I think it's all of college football, the NCAA announcement that for redshirt players that be allowed to play in a bowl game and it not counting towards the 4-game limit. That was something that came down over the weekend for every bowl game after December 15th. So sorry, guys, if you played on one of the December 15th bowl games, but for every game after that, if a freshman plays in it, it does not count towards the 4-game limit for his red shirt. It'll be interesting to see how that affects Oklahoma.
Yeah, but what are we doing? How far is this going to go? All right. Now we're at 5 games. You can play in 4 games, and then your bowl game. We're at 5 games and still maintain your red shirt. I'm not necessarily saying that I disagree with it, but I mean that's a lot of football. That's a lot of football.
I like the rule. I really do, because just thinking like back to my career, it would have been really cool to be able to play in 4 games and still keep my redshirt year. And I think I would have, with kind of where we were at depth wise at tight end, my redshirt year back in 2009. But yeah, it just seems like, would you see the kid? What is it? The Oregon kid that's on his like 9th year of eligibility now.
It's nuts. I don't mind it. It's fine. It's just like,
I don't mind the bowl game.
I
don't think the bowl game should count. I agree with this ruling, but I also hear what you're saying. Like, you can play in 5 games and still redshirt. Like,
is that like what's the medical threshold to get a medical? I mean, it should match, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, 5 games is a lot of ball, but I get it, especially with guys opting out of bowl games. It leaves you in a weird spot roster wise, but I'm fine with it. I just wonder, like, where is it ever going to end, or is there going to be like, what's the next thing? Like, this will be half. Well, 5 games, 6 is like half. You should be able to play in half, right? I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's never ending.
Yeah. It'll probably just be like every guy gets 6 years of eligibility. Here we go.
Yeah. Okay. You get 6.
You just get 6 years. Here we
go.
No
more red shirt. Doesn't matter. You play 6 years of college football. It'd be awesome.
No, yeah. But I do think the main, I would think the main driver behind that rule change is what you're talking about with the opt-outs.
Yeah.
And just having more guys available to play in the game. Especially, you see some of these, I mean, you're talking double-digit opt-out numbers for some of these rosters. So
guys that have hit the portal, and then guys that are, opting out of bowl game for NFL, you all of a sudden be without a massive chunk of your football team.
Yeah, and a lot of key contributors, right?
Yeah.
So that's where, and I have not kept track of any freshmen that this could allow to play in the Cheez-It Bowl, but if it allows a guy for Oklahoma to get on the field and get some really valuable reps against a really good football team, seems good, right? But I don't know if, like, you think about a guy like Jaden Gibson or Nick Anderson, and I know Llewellyn has definitely played in well over 4 games with everything he's done on special teams.
How many games did R. Mason Thomas play in?
I don't know, because he missed quite a few with a hammy.
He missed a big chunk there. Wonder if
I don't know if this ends up being, maybe someone out there can do some digging, right? Who this could end up benefiting for Oklahoma, but hopefully it ends up working out in a big way for the Sooners. That's my hope, at least.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, this other one comes from Jeremy LaForce. And he says, Notre Dame fans being pissed off. We will dive into the Peyton Bowen situation with Josh McCuistion here in just a bit. But yeah, have you seen some of the message board genius screenshots?
No, but I know that Notre Dame was real quick to, like, with the McCullough brothers coming to Oklahoma and then the Peyton Bowen situation. I did hear from some people that Notre Dame fans are really quick to start talking about how those guys weren't any good really to begin with anyways.
They're not any good, or Oklahoma's paying them absorbent amounts of money.
Right.
Or maybe both,
Could be both.
But yeah, we'll get into that. But first, birthday shout outs. Happy 6th birthday to Bennett Bartee.
Happy 9th birthday to Grant Moore.
Happy 12th birthday to Bane Wolf.
What a name. Happy 15th birthday to Owen Huddleston.
Happy 39th birthday to Brian Steigers.
That's what I'm going with. Happy 57th birthday to Gary Pierman.
Happy birthday to Camry Bunts. I covered my bases.
Happy birthday to Easton Bunts.
That one of those has to be right. Happy birthday to Heath Sullivan.
And happy birthday to Catherine Boron.
It's one of those. Nailed it. This is why people listen to this podcast, just for that. Right there. All right, let's talk about OU's 2023 recruiting class with one of the best in the business, Josh McCuistion. But first, the only place to stop when you're road tripping is Love's Travel Stops. Love's has over 600 locations in 41 states, offering 24-hour access to clean and safe places. Whatever your road trip needs are, Love's has it. Fuel, fresh food, all the snacks and drinks, including, yes, my favorite, Ja Morant. That coffee is fantastic. Love's also has you covered if you forget your phone charger or headphones. They've expanded their mobile to-go zone so you can grab any of that stuff there. Make sure you download the Love's Connect app for exclusive offers from today's most popular brands. The Love's Connect app also includes a route planner and store locator. When you see that red neon heart on the highway, stop in and say hi at Love's Travel Stops. For a full list of what Love's has to offer, visit loves.com.
Opolis Clothing is the exclusive home for all of our Oklahoma Breakdown merchandise. If you want to live your life in buttery soft comfort, go to opolisclothing.com. That's OPOLIS clothing.com. Use promo code TED, TED, for 10% off your entire order. You still get a discount on all of the OU and OKC Thunder gear as well. That's opolisclothing.com. Use promo code TED for 10% off. Buttery soft and 10% off.
And Bishop McGuinness Catholic High School represents a tradition of educational excellence in Oklahoma City. Grounded in a faith-based education, students prepare to meet their potential with an individualized academic path that strives for success. Bishop McGuinness offers a college prep curriculum that includes 22 AP courses, participation in OSSAA athletics, where they've won over 100 state championships, and numerous clubs and organizations for students to join and grow. If you want to provide the best possible educational and spiritual development for your children, contact Bishop McGuinness Catholic High School or visit bmchs.org. Financial aid is available. All right, let's talk some Cruton with Josh McCuistion. It is our pleasure to be joined by the unquestioned brains of the operation over at Soonerscoop.com. Josh McCuistion is in the house. What's going on, man?
Not much. I'm probably going to put that on a placard somewhere. We're going to make sure Eddie, Carrie, we'll make sure everybody sees that for sure.
No doubt. Now, before we kind of dive into individual guys, and obviously the Peyton Bowen situation is very interesting. What's this time of year like for you, man?
It's chaos, man. Because I mean, you guys know you got kids, so on top of all the work stuff with portal and recruiting, you got Christmas lights to see and all the other stuff you got to do, keep the missus happy, all that stuff. So man, it's just an insane. It's one of those things though too. It makes me like I can't imagine what a coach's life is like because I'm it's to quote the to Mike Leach, like the chicken or the pig. The chicken's involved, but the pig's committed, man. Like I mean, I'm around it, but I mean to have to live it day in and day out, that's a whole different animal.
Has the early signing period, it was supposed to make things easier on everyone, and I feel like it made it infinitely more difficult.
In a lot of ways, I think you're right. And I've always been a big early signing day guy. I was a believer. I thought it made sense, but I thought it made sense in like August. The guys that you knew, guys like you two, like you knew
guys that want to get it out of the way before their senior year.
Yeah, exactly. But guys that that want to go through it, hey, fine, no problem. They can go to February. It's because December to February, I mean, you're talking about basically 6 weeks. Like it's not like that just took some huge pressure off your plate. And so, like I said, I'd like to see something in the preseason so the coaches can kind of know, okay, we've got these numbers, we know what we've got left. And then you run it out to February like we always have, and they can focus right now instead of worrying about in homes with recruits. They're getting out in the portal, they're finding their numbers, they're doing whatever they need to do. And then in February, they can kind of fill out the ranks and have it go any way they want to. So I get how it's kind of come to this, but it feels like now that the portal's such a real thing, you're going to have to make some amendments to the kind of initial plan that the NCAA had.
Yeah, this is the system we got for now, boys. So we'll just everyone involved will just have to live with it. All right, let's start with Peyton Bowen. This is a situation that all OU fans appear to be very interested in. Notre Dame fans appear to be rather worried. What's the latest you're hearing on this entire thing?
Sure. Well, I mean, the most recent thing is Oklahoma had their final in home on Saturday night, and that seems so straightforward. But there were rumors on Friday that he was going to take an official visit to Oregon over the weekend, and that obviously would close the chance. And you guys know because you went through it, that last in home, that's usually, especially for an uncommitted guy, that's when Brent Venables in this case is going to come in. But any head coach, they make that last pitch, that last thing. And all week it had seemed really good for Oklahoma because you had Oregon coming in on Wednesday, Notre Dame went in Thursday, and then Oklahoma really kind of had an open-ended period. They could do it Friday, they could do it Saturday. It was really loose in how they could interpret that. And then all of a sudden it was like he may go to visit Oregon this weekend, and that was just going to throw everything up in the air. But the fact that they got the last, that's usually a really good indicator of what a guy's doing, what he's thinking. Same with official visits. You get the last one, that's usually a good tell in some ways. It's not exact by any stretch, but I think in the end, it's come down to Peyton really wants to be at Oklahoma. That's my impression from everybody I've spoken to. That's where he's most comfortable. Obviously, he's good friends with Jackson Arnold, who I know you guys had on not long ago. There is the girlfriend. That's always a great chip to have in your favor. So there's a lot of connection there. I think in the end, it's come down to his mother is very in favor of Notre Dame, and we all get it. Academics, all the things that moms care about and really harp on. That Marcus Freeman's really hit a home run with her. But I think as it's progressed, it's kind of become maybe she still wants Notre Dame, but she's comfortable enough with Oklahoma and feels good enough about that staff that she can kind of sign off on that. And that's what I think is going to happen Wednesday. But there does become a point where, what are we all waiting on here? Like if it's as straightforward as it seems to me, it feels like it maybe should have already been done.
Yeah, it feels like if it was straightforward, it should have already been done a long time ago, like way back in the summer. Is it at least around here, it hasn't felt like Notre Dame was like the true player for very long. It felt like the Oklahoma was inevitable, but Oregon comes in, and I think we know why Oregon has such a place at the table here. It's NIL stuff, right? So you got the Notre Dame connection with Marcus Freeman and, the mother, the academics. Got Oklahoma for all of the reasons that you mentioned. Teammates want to come here. distance. It's easy drive up for parents to come to games. And then you've got the money situation at Oregon. Is it just as simple as how do you weigh those three against each other?
I think that's some of it. And what's interesting is kind of depending on who you talk to, there are several pieces in play within his family. I think there's some, well, okay, this, like maybe mom likes Notre Dame, dad feels differently. And then it feels like Oklahoma could be the safe middle, because I think that could be, because that's, again, Peyton, I think he's going to get to make his choice. There's certainly some kids I cover when dad is so over the top, or mom, or whoever it may be, you're like, it doesn't matter. He's going to go wherever dad tells him to, or wherever mom tells him to, or whatever whoever the family, kind of leader is. I think Peyton gets to make this choice, and that's why I think it'll come out for Oklahoma. But it does feel like there is some kind of pushing and pulling. And I think that's maybe why it has seemed so chaotic at times, where, like you said, Teddy, where it seemed, there's been multiple times when it seemed like, okay, this is the weekend. He came in for Bedlam and everything went so well that weekend. And you kind of thought, okay, here we go. This is going to be the time it all pops. And then it just doesn't. And you just kind of wonder about that. And again, because it would be one thing if Oklahoma was the uncomfortable choice, or, something where he's doing, something that's going to upset a lot of people. Most of the people around him that are, like I said, girlfriend, good buddy Jackson Arnold, all these people are going to be so enthusiastic about it, but it's just gotta, at some point, the rubber has to meet the road. And now, as we sit here and talk, I mean, we're 72 hours away from kind of that moment.
So that seems like the top decision that a lot of people are waiting to see on Wednesday. Josh, are there any other big time prospects that OU's in play for that are going to make decisions on Wednesday?
Well, the ones that we don't know, Peyton's, and I want to give him some credit. A lot of guys that are in his scenario, they don't talk much. They won't deal with anybody. Like, they don't really let you know what's going on. They kind of shut down. He's not been that way. And from a guy in my position, you kind of have to shout those guys out, because, rubbing, just trying to find any little dirt you can find anywhere is sometimes brutal on these guys that just don't want to communicate. The other guy that I think most people will be watching is Tassili Akana, the big linebacker from Utah. Really interesting guy. He's kind of one of those guys. I've said it before. It's kind of like when you talk about, I said the same thing about Deshaun McCullough. It's really about how creative your defensive, coordinator, however you want to term that, sculptor, the guy that's actually doing the design, how creative can he be? I think Tassili Akana can be very good under a creative mind, because he has a unique skill set. He's a guy that can put his hand down in the dirt. He could stand up. You could drop him off sometimes. He brings a lot of different stuff. And, I know most people know it at this point, but he was one of Brent Venable's early targets. He made him a focus, and really was a guy that I can't think of many guys in this class that Brent was such a spearhead for. And I mean, Brent's very involved. I don't want to make it sound like that, but was almost a leader in his recruitment, kind of from beginning to end. And I think Oklahoma's going to close that, but Texas is apparently making it kind of interesting down the stretch here. I know they've got some confidence. I've heard some talk of Utah as well. It's going to be an interesting race. Now, I know people will hear Utah and think, well, he's a Utah kid. He's actually from Hawaii, moved over during COVID, had to deal with, Hawaii wasn't going to play football. Utah was about as close as he could get to home that was playing football in 2020. So he went over there. And rather than move back to the island after it was done, he just stayed in Utah and played out his high school career. So he's kind of an interesting guy, because he doesn't really have any true allegiance anywhere other than, I guess you can argue, his sister plays volleyball at Texas. So if we want to argue the Peyton Bowen connections, we have to give, some credit to that as well. But I think he's going to be interesting. And then a guy they had in this weekend is Marcus Strong, a big defensive lineman from Florida. Kind of one of those guys in Florida you see a lot, where, 6'5", 260. And it's crazy that you can see a lot of guys like that in Florida, but that's just, Florida just raises monsters. But he is really athletic, really long guy. And I think assuming everything went to plan this week, and I haven't had a chance to talk with Marcus yet, I would be very surprised if OU's not the choice for him.
A couple of things here. DJ Hicks, I know there was talk for a while that maybe he was going to kind of be back in the fray a little bit after that commitment to Texas A&M. I don't know what all's gone on there. And Stone, is he going to reclassify? Have you heard anything about that?
There has been some talk of that. I honestly expect what David is going to do is announce he's probably just coming back to Oklahoma, and we'll try to do it at semester next year and just be a midterm guy. He's kind of like a situation we were talking about with Bowen earlier. Like, I know he never really wanted to go to IMG. That was never really his thing. I think his mom wanted him to go out there, see what that was like, see if he took to it. And as much as he's gained from IMG, I mean, he's played some great competition, played a bunch of elite guys. I think he'd like to come back home. I've heard he's always wanted to come back to Del City, but I've heard all sorts of schools in the area saying, "Oh, like, he may come back and play for us." So he'll be an interesting guy to watch. It's possible, Teddy. But my guess is he's going to announce he's coming back. That's kind of the rumor I've heard. As far as Hicks, Oklahoma made that really interesting. Kind of the same deal with Peyton Bowen, where it just seemed like it got to a tipping point where either you're going to do it now or you're never going to do it. And it just, and I know Brent went in home last week and really, Oklahoma did everything they could. I mean, I just don't think, I think A&M, had a lot of things in their favor, not unlike kind of what you were referencing with Oregon and some of their abilities earlier. But at the same time, it's much closer to home. His dad is now the head coach at the high school there, Katie Paytow. Going to be harder for him to get up and, get to Oklahoma or get to Oregon that Hicks is looking at as well and go see his kid play. So A&M provides some convenience as well. It's not all, I know people want to make it all about one thing or another. There's multiple layers to it for David Hicks, but I think in the end, he's probably going to pick A&M. And honestly, if I was to say, I would guess Oregon's probably the runner-up for him at this point.
Looking at the class as a whole, Josh, you've got 2 5-stars, right? With Jackson Arnold and PJ Adebawore. When it comes to those 2 guys kind of being the pillars of this class, like how special do you think those 2 guys can be, right? One quarterback, one pass rusher, exactly what you're looking for in 5-star prospects.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, if you were going to pick your 2 positions offensively and defensively where we're going to get an elite talent, I think that's exactly where you start in this day and age. I mean, I know not that long ago you'd argued for defensive tackle, but and as a guy that got to see PJ in person this year, that is, that's just an outstanding evaluation, because back when OU offered him, he was like a 3-star guy, had some good offers, but really wasn't that well known. And then as people started going by North Kansas City and seeing him, I mean, guys, he's every bit of 6'4.5", 6'5", long arm, long legged. I mean, like, he hasn't even started to fill out his frame yet, but just an absolute freak of an athlete. I mean, he's the guy you're looking for coming off the edge. I think with him, and again, obviously Jackson Arnold, everybody's so familiar with Jackson, all he's done at Denton Guyer. I think what's amazing to me is you look at this, and after, we're a year in now. I mean, I remember doing this with you guys a year ago, and it was all the kind of uncertainty. Oklahoma's probably going to bring in their best defensive class in 15 years, and they still got the 5-star quarterback. Like, I mean, so, all that, we'll see how the quarterback situation goes. They got their guy. I mean, people can, when Jackson Arnold committed, there was a lot of, is this guy good enough for OU? And, there was a lot of talk, they should have taken the Jaden Rashada kid that was very high on Jeff Levy. Really liked him a lot as well. And OU, they wanted to take Arnold, and they took him, and all they did is just watch it get paid off, because he's just been outstanding ever since. Won the Elite 11, took Denton Guyer to state semifinals. And really, I know people kind of look at that and say, he didn't get to finals this year. DeSoto's really, really good. I mean, you're talking about just D1 athletes. And I was talking about this the other day. You look at, they have Peyton Bowen, they have Jackson Arnold. Great. That's an amazing. On that field, they have the 2 best players. Then the next 12 best players may be from DeSoto. So, like, people have to gauge that a little bit and understand that it's a depth situation that changes the story a little bit.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. You know, I agree. Whenever he first committed to Oklahoma, it was like, okay, good player. Let's see what happens. Then because he wasn't a 5-star at that point, right? And then
That's correct.
got his 5th star later on. And then the season he had with everyone, you know, especially that game on ESPN, who was that against Allen?
Allen, yeah.
It felt like his stock had really just gone through the roof. And then I saw they reclassified, or I guess regraded, whatever you call it, here within like the last week or 10 days, and he came down. How do you know how that happened? Like, what went on there?
Well, what I'm guessing you're talking about is a composite grade, and that's like something like, you know, obviously I work for Rivals, but I realize all the other networks do different stuff. 24/7 will do what's called a composite. It's just like an average of all the rankings, and then it averages out everybody else. So it's hard to explain because not every ranking is a balance. It's not like, okay, they're 100th at Rivals and they're 24/7, they're 50, and you know, another place. So it just comes out to the average of the three. It's where do you rank in all three, and then that rank becomes the ranking. It's not like an average score. So that became, God, as the guy who worked for the network that was the last to get Jackson Arnold to 5 stars, that was not a fun conversation to have over and over again. I was like, guys, I know where you think he is. I probably agree with you, but that's just not the way this works. And so and after the Elite 11, it was like white flag. I don't care. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Like, it'll happen when it happens. But with Jackson, again, I think it was a deal where Geyer's been so successful that it's kind of easy sometimes to pan those guys off. It's like, oh, he's just great because all that's around him or whatever that may be. I remember watching his tape because I didn't know him because, you know, Lincoln Riley had obviously had Malachi Nelson, and I'd been to Southern California several times to see Malachi. I knew him really well. I knew the family. I didn't know Jackson Arnold from anything. Like, I just had seen him play a few high school games, but he was not on my radar. And so it just became a situation where I'm trying to play catch up, and I'm watching this kid, and I'm like, I don't know why I think he was like 125 at the time he committed to OU, which is a great ranking. People lose sight of that. Like, I mean, that's a guy you expect to have an NFL career. I mean, and I think people kind of forget that. But at the same time, it's nowhere commensurate with what he's done. I mean, like, he had a great career, incredible athlete. And I think this year people finally realized how skilled he is with his feet, like all the plays he can make on the run and even within the offense. It's not just, play breaks down and he's going to do something. He can, you know, you can design things for him that he will be very successful with. So again, I think it's Jeff Lebby making a really tough call because, as I said, I think he could have had Jaden Rashada, and he made the call for Jackson Arnold. And you look at all the rankings now, Jackson Arnold's ahead of Rashada, I think, unanimously across the country, and that was not the case at the time. I think he took some heat for it.
Josh, over the years, you and we have gotten the habit of getting into discussions about Oklahoma's necessity to get better at the line of scrimmage. That is I would say that is a frequent theme in our discussions. When you look at, let's start with the offensive line. When you look at the offensive linemen in this 2023 recruiting class, like, overall, do you think Bill Bedenbaugh and Brent Venables, are they bringing in the type of guys that will get this program where they need to be up front, especially with the SEC looming?
Well, Gabe, we had to have this conversation because Caden Green was a frequent topic of conversation for you and I a couple years ago with some of that camp stuff. But, you know, Caden, you talk about a guy with the physical tools to do anything he wants to do. Caden's he's a truly gifted player. He, you know, coming from Missouri, I think I wondered at the time of his commitment, or I guess at the time that it seemed like OU was going to be a real option for him, how long it might take him, because I thought he had a lot of physical development to go under, which is perfectly normal for an offensive lineman. But he was a little heavy, carried some bad weight, you know, and I didn't know how hard he'd ever really hit it in the weight room. Over the last year, he's really transformed his body. He looks much better, cut off a lot of that bad weight. Now, he still needs to get stronger and all those things. I mean, I think you guys know better than me. If he needs to play next year, that's a problem. Like, you don't want to be in that situation. So I think he can be fine. Like I said, I think he can be special. I think he needs time to get there. You don't want to run him out there too early, mess with his confidence. Like, just let him grow naturally through it. One of the guys that's super interesting is Logan Howland, big guy, played tight end as a junior in high school. Nobody really was identifying him. And I think it's finally his high school coach sat him down and was like, look, man, you can be a 6'7", 270-pound tight end playing for Hofstra if you want to, or you can maybe think about moving to tackle. And I think within weeks he got his first FBS offer, and it just took off. I mean, you look at his offer list: Iowa, Miami. I mean, Mario Cristobal, say what you want about Miami. Mario Cristobal knows what he's looking at. And obviously Oklahoma as well. Those were really his three finalists. If you tell me that for an offensive lineman, I mean, Gabe, again, you know better than me. That's a really good stamp of approval on a guy. So I like what he brings, but very raw. I mean, people have to understand he's going to need time. This is something we saw, and Gabe, obviously with you being a good example, but so many guys that were high school tight ends going all the way back to like Frank Romero in the early 2000s, a lot of those kind of guys. And it's something OU's had success with, not something they've done as much as of late, but I'm really interested to see where it goes. And then Joshua Bates, Bill Bedenbaugh could offer about any center in the country, and he identified Joshua Bates very early on, made him a focus. And, in a state that Oklahoma doesn't really recruit much anymore, in Colorado, really, again, just kind of showered him with attention, made it known, you're my guy, you're the one I want. Josh commits, is the one guy that stands out from the previous staff as far as stuck with it the whole time, never deviated. And, now is about ready to enroll, graduated this weekend. So he is a big, sturdy guy, really, kind of a big, powerful center. Going to be interesting to see how they use him, if it's at all different, where I think we've gotten so used to Oklahoma. I mean, and I don't want to present him as not athletic, but he's more of a big-bodied guy than I think we've seen sometimes at center. So that'll be kind of interesting to watch how that plays. And then Heath Ozida, kid, from Washington, really wasn't well known. Within like 2 weeks of being offered, he was a guy that most guys like me just hadn't heard any connection with Oklahoma about. But another guy, Stanford was involved with him, had some good, you look at it, and I had actually had a chance to go see him this season. And there's a lot of work there to be done. He's got to get bigger. He's got to get stronger, but he's got a nice frame. He's got good feet. It's just one of those things where if he'll buy in and work over an amount of years, I don't see any way there's no reason he shouldn't be able to be a starter in the near future. So this group can make them better. I think Howland and Green are clearly the upside guys where they can take it the farthest. And obviously with those guys having the length and size to play tackle, that's not a bad problem to have if that's where your real talent is.
Yeah. And just kind of building on that line of scrimmage theme, how about the defensive line group? It seems like there's more length there, and like height and size and real, I guess, maybe versatility than we've seen perhaps, but how does the defensive line group that we have right now stack up to years past?
It's so funny because you bring that up and you're right. I mean, you look at the ends, with PJ Adebawore, who I've talked about, that I think is just probably, if I was going to bet on one guy in this class being a top 10 pick someday, he'd be my bet. Like, I think PJ Adebawore is special. Derek LeBlanc, big, really interesting body type guy, real, so long-armed and long-legged and kind of short torso. Like, you don't see stuff like that very long, but still very big in the lower body. Going to be really interesting to see what Todd Bates does with him along the line, as far as kind of where they start him out at, what kind of weight they see him putting on, because he's 265 pounds and looks skinny. I mean, like, he has a lot of room to grow in a lot of different directions. And then, Taylor Wine, the guy they took late from Tennessee, really blew up as a senior. And I talked to Taylor, I mean, at the time Oklahoma offered him, I think his best offer was like FCS. Like, he really didn't have anything big at that point in time. And then USC comes along. I mean, Kentucky came along. There was a lot of interest late in him. And I think, just talking to him, he just talked about, kind of getting into the weight room, putting some good weight on, really muscled up, and worked on his first step, just being more explosive. And, you look at all those guys, they're all 6'4", 6'5", long arm. And then you have Ashton Sanders at defensive tackle coming from Los Angeles, just a squat, real, powerfully built guy, going to come inside. Really great feet, though. I mean, he's a guy that you could see being a very skilled pass rusher on the inside. And again, it's just kind of what they do with them. And guys, and let's be honest, in years past, you'd wonder how that works. Can they be creative enough to find some ways to make all this work? Under Brent Venables, you're like, I don't think that's going to be the problem. Like, it's just getting these guys on the field, getting them experience and comfortable, and then he'll draw something up to get these guys loose and making plays up front. So I think this, again, like I said earlier, this defensive line is a big part of why I say I think this is the best class defensively OU signed probably since 2008. And you throw in Peyton Bowen, if you can add that little piece, you throw in Bowen, Akana, and the Marcus Strong kid that I was talking about earlier. That's another, kind of high ceiling guy. That's just monstrous. I mean, that can change your roster in a couple of years. And you go into the SEC, whether it's 24 or 25, you start looking more like an SEC roster. You've got those big nasties up front that can really do some things for you.
I'm interested in what you think about these wide receivers, right? I've heard a lot about Petaway for a while now, and, not quite as much about Keon Brown, but I think late in the season, it became rather obvious that the OU's got to get more explosive at wide receiver.
Yep.
Are these guys potential big time difference makers, you think?
Yeah, Petaway, if you're talking about explosion, I mean, he's got Marvin Mims kind of ability to stretch. I mean, he really does. I go and see him, and he plays in the Cypress ISD up in North Houston. And I won't pretend it's a great district. It's not, but there's plenty of good athletes in it. I mean, there's a lot of guys that can really run. And I go and see him this fall, and the first quarter just sleepy, man. He doesn't get much. There's nothing happening. All of a sudden they punt, or his defense forces a punt, gets the ball at the 11. First play, they just run a post pattern for him, and he goes 89 yards, just outruns everybody. I mean, it was kind of one of those things where, as soon as he caught the ball, you knew. I mean, there was nobody running with him. And that's what he's done his whole high school career. I mean, he's a Jeff Levy kind of guy. He wants to get vertical. OU fans should love him because basically he went to Austin and everybody thought he was going to go to Texas. Came home and all you heard was he's not going to Texas. He didn't like that visit at all. And so I'm like, OU fans are just going to love that dude. I mean, he came in right off. And even, with the Cale Gundy situation, and then obviously through some of the hiccups of this season, he was always like, what are you guys talking about? I'm fine. I'm solid. I'm going to OU. I'm going to help fix this. I want to be a big play guy. And he knows. I mean, he knows that opportunity's there for him because, like you guys said, by the end of the year, there were about, 3 receivers really getting heavy snaps. And then Theo Weiss kind of mixed in, who we all know is now gone. So, I mean, there's availability there to make plays. And I think he is tailor-made for it. Keon Brown is – I don't know if a wide receiver can ever be your first off the bus guy, but he is that kind of dude, just a 6'2", 205. And I won't pretend I didn't know his name. I didn't know he was coming to OU's camp, and we watch that stuff pretty closely, but there's always a few that sneak in, and he shows up and you were just like, I don't know who that guy is, but I want to watch him do something. And immediately he just starts taking on some DBs, and we're talking guys that had offers from SEC schools, Pac-12 schools, good players, and he's just cooking them. I mean, just running past them, and he's, again, like I said, at 6'2", he's got great feet. Had a game early in the year where I think he had almost 300 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. I mean, he is, and, you're talking Florida, so it doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. You're playing athletes. And he is, I think, probably, and I know sometimes this term comes off bad, he's a very boomer bust guy. I think he could be a guy that gets it immediately and all the, you got a huge steal here. Or he's a guy that you wonder, maybe this is why they were able to get him out of Florida. I've dealt with Keon. I've never gotten any reason for obvious concern, but it just shocks me. I mean, a kid from Tallahassee that they just went and took, and you're just kind of like, how does that happen? And had an offer from Alabama and picked Oklahoma. And kind of like I said with Petaway, never seemed to waver, never seemed to be off about his decision. So like I said, I think the receiver room, while you would like probably one more, I'm sure the staff feels the same way. the two they got are absolutely capable of helping this team, and maybe as soon as next year.
One of the things that I think is really interesting, and sometimes it plays out like this often, but when I look at the class as a whole, some of my favorite guys, like the three lowest ranked guys in the entire class, Taylor Wine, Cade McIntyre, and Eric McCarty, I think may be some of the guys that end up being the best actual players out of the entire class. Do you see that the same? Like, I see that even though they're 3-star guys, I feel like there's a ton of value. Like even Pichotti as a 3-star guy. Like, I think some of these 3-stars we got are way undervalued right now.
I absolutely think there's some of that. Like, and I've heard you guys reference it a little bit. I'm going to be real interested to see if Joe John Finley can hang on to Cade McIntyre. Like, that's a big, long, athletic dude. Eddie, our guy Eddie, that obviously you both know well, went to Omaha to cover the baseball team, and we had him stop by and see Cade, and he was like, Eddie's interview, you're like, God, that kid's big. Like, you could tell, and it's one of those things. And also, just Eddie talking to him and talking to his family. I mean, he's an unbelievable kid. Like, he really is a guy. He's going to buy in from day one. I don't know if everybody saw the pictures of the in-home. Dad looks like he probably could use some eligibility. He could still play for him. He's a monster.
Dad knows where the weight room's at. I need Dad's supplement routine also. I need to know. I need some help. Whatever he's on, I want it.
Doesn't his family own a gym or something? Isn't that what his dad does?
I believe that's right. There's some real connection to it, and I can't remember what the entire storyline is, but it's absolutely something like that. As far as your question, though, the guy I really like that I kind of am shocked doesn't get more love is Kendall Dolby, the DB from NEO. I think that dude, it's kind of like, I don't know how he doesn't get on the field next year. You watch him play corner, safety. He's coming for somebody's job. Like, I mean, he's that kind of guy. Now he's a kid that gets it. I mean, he's not like he would never say the sentence I just said, but like, he is absolutely geared the right way. I like everything about him. I like his attitude. And just, again, you watch him, whether it's coming up and playing run, he's violent. He can drop off in coverage. He's very good with the ball in the air. You see those guys sometimes, you're like, well, he's got to be a corner because, if he's not engaged in the play, he'll kind of fade. But he could play safety if that's what they need him to do. I think he's very good with the ball in the air. He's natural. So there's a lot that I like there. I've just kind of been surprised he hasn't gotten a little more notoriety. I mentioned Ashton Sanders. I like him a lot. I think he's super active. You love those, especially in this day and age. And I hate to always go back to it, but you guys know better than I do. If you can get some pressure inside, just changes the game. I mean, it makes it so difficult to run what a lot of these offenses want to do. And Teddy, you mentioned Eric McCarty. Eric McCarty is one of my all-time painstaking situations. He is a guy, talked to the old staff and was checking with some people like, hey, do I need to go see him play in the state title game last year? Nah, I don't think he's going to be a fit. Like, he just wasn't seen as a target for them. And so I didn't go. Just thought, well, there's no reason for me to drive 7 hours from Houston to see a kid OU's not that serious about. Coaching change happens like a week later. Well, then I go to see Eric in the spring. He's injured in the spring, can't play. Was going to go see him twice this year. And I mean, McAllister, I don't want to make it sound like he's injury prone. McAllister rode that kid hard, and he just kind of kept getting ankles and knees, and he just kind of kept getting nicked up. And so I tried to see him 3 times this year, and every single time I did, he just wasn't good to go. And so he's probably the only Oklahoma high school guy that committed to OU that I haven't seen in person probably since your class, Teddy. Like, I mean, like, it goes that, so like it goes back a ways, and it's just a shame that I'll probably never get rid of. But you watch the kid play. I mean, I don't care. It's kind of like, it's what you said. Like, if I'm going to bet on who's the best, the top 10 guy, I'll take PJ Adebawore. But if I had to say this guy is going to be a good football player and is going to make your team better, Eric McCarty, and I would also say Lewis Carter, the kid out of Tampa that they've got committed. Lewis Carter is a freaking football player. That's a monster.
Yep.
So I love both those guys. I don't know how you get them both on the field because they're kind of uniquely skilled, or they're kind of similarly skilled, but that's a good problem to have. I mean, if you're subbing those guys in and out and they're rotating, fine. But they are. I saw Lewis in a high school game. I got to go watch him play. He had like 6 touchdowns, had a forced fumble, like 13 tackles. Like, I mean, and that was basically in 3/4 of play because they just ran out the clock in the fourth. I mean, he just murdered people. It was impressive.
Josh, I'm always rooting for the Oklahoma guys to do well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I see the kid from Mustang, like that looks like an athlete, man. Where do you think Jacoby Johnson's going to play? Like, have you heard anything?
He's kind of like what I was talking about, like where I think his skill set is probably best at safety. You look at the frame, you look at the size. I think he's better at corner, though. Like, I think he looks better when I'm trailing a man, I'm on somebody's inside hip. I think at safety, sometimes he float, like, and you don't see him in that lot, but when they drop him off in zone at Mustang, he looked like he'd get lost a little bit. And I don't know if that's just he needs a challenge, facing – because, I mean, Jacoby Johnson's a freak of an athlete. I mean, he's one of those guys where as a high school player, there's plenty of guys in his class that are probably – especially at the position they will play. Jacoby's a great receiver right now, puts up huge numbers for Mustang. I don't mean to put that down at all. He is a especially gifted guy. As a DB, nobody challenges him. Nobody goes to his side of the field. And I get it. I wouldn't either if I was an offensive coordinator. But he's got so much that you just don't know. Like, maybe he's great at these things, but you don't get to see it very often because everybody's known who he was since he was a sophomore, because OU offered him coming out of his freshman year. So he kind of had a target on his back at such an early age. And then, as a junior, really took off as a receiver, and everybody was like, oh, he really is a great athlete. But Gabe, you're not wrong. I mean, and this isn't one of those guys where he's going to shrink once he gets on OU's roster. He is 6'2". He's 200 pounds. He can run for days. He's a great basketball player as well. So, he's got feet and he can move and he can mirror and do some of those things. So it's going to be, to me, I've said it all along with Jacoby. If he wants to be great, Jacoby can be special. I mean, like, he has that kind of skill set, that ability. It's just a matter of, and I've heard, I am a Oklahoma Breakdown listener, so, I'll own that completely. But I've heard you guys talk about it. The difference between being a basketball guy and a football guy, it's different. It's not the same thing. It's not the same mentality. And I think at times Jacoby has a little bit of a basketball mentality. And if he can shake that and be a football guy, and we're going to stick our nose in and do the things we got to do to be good, he can be great. I mean, he can be an NFL guy. It's just a matter of, can he buy into that?
Excellent stuff. Last thing I've really got is what's cooking in the portal. I know everyone knows about like the major 3 guys that, Stogner, the kid from Notre Dame, D lineman, and then obviously McCullough from Indiana. What else you seeing out there? What's cooking?
Well, Teddy, once I'm done, I think I want to just have you talk about McCullough for a while, because I think you might be the only person more excited about him than I am. I think that's I
can't wait. Man. He's a stud, man.
Yeah, he's a monster. I saw him back during COVID. I saw him at a camp in southern Oklahoma. He was in Idabel, Oklahoma, of all places on earth. And yeah, it was like the only camp in the country that was happening. So guys came in from all over, and he and Day were both there. And you were just like, I don't know what you're going to be yet, but you're a freak. Like, I want you as part of whatever roster I'm involved with. So, but yeah, as far as the portal, they had a couple of guys in this weekend. Trey Harris was in, a big receiver from La Tech that I think is really one of their focuses early on here in the portal. I've been told they're about as high on him as any receiver in the portal right now. So that's a guy they really like. And you bring him in this weekend, I think that's a really good indicator, because he can't go anywhere else. He's not going to be able to take any more visits for a couple of weeks. OU kind of has that last thought in his head. And if he's planning to enroll at semester, which I'm almost certain he is, then he's got to make, you got to start planning for moves. You got to get all that in place. You would think that's a pretty good indicator of where he's at. The other guy that came in is a guy I know you two are familiar with, Caden Prather from West Virginia came in. So big, long, athletic guy, a lot there to like. Kind of faded in and out from games at times with West Virginia, but there's a lot of skill there to like, and a guy that knows Jalil Farouk, goes back. He's one of those DMV guys. And I think those two could be guys they land. And then you kind of see where it goes. I kind of keep waiting for an offensive lineman to come in. The Jeremiah Byers kid I like a lot. And the recent offer, who I'm going to forget, the kid from Tulsa, he's from Austin. Of course, I can just go blank on his name right at this moment. But, I feel like it's been a little more controlled. There's a more clear idea of what they're trying to get out of the portal, as to where last year, I mean, you guys know they had to fill that roster. It just wasn't where it needed to be. And I think with this recruiting class, and as well as it looks like they're going to close, they don't have the same amount of holes, so they can focus more heavily on 8 to 12 guys rather than we got to recruit 30 guys and hope we get 15 and they're the right 15. So that is, I think it's going very well for them. Like I said, you get McCullough, you get an experienced guy on the inside like Jacob Lacey that you mentioned. And then, you throw in Austin Stogner just to give that tight end room just some stability, some experience. It feels like they're filling holes, but they're doing it in the right way, where you're getting guys that address your needs rather than just this is a guy who can play the position at practice.
Yeah. And don't worry, I'll make sure and send a formal apology to Dylan Wade's family for you for forgetting his name.
I was like, it's Wade or Where. That happens.
There's way too much going on, man. You're fine. You're absolutely fine. Josh, you're the man. You guys do a great job over there at Sooner Scoop, staying on top of all this, man. It's must view stuff for any OU fan. Go subscribe, people. Soonerscoop.com.
Appreciate it, guys.
That man's got a lot going on right now.
Busy time of the year. That's good, though. Get it knocked out right around Christmas, and then hopefully you could cruise a little bit after the holidays.
Yeah. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. All right, let's finish up with our winners and losers of the weekend. But first,
it's football time in Oklahoma, people, and there's nothing better to drink at the tailgate than Clubby Seltzers. Clubby Seltzers is an Oklahoma company that is already winning national awards because their product is delicious. It tastes exactly like a club special, but it's a seltzer. And they're not just for tailgating either. They're perfect to drink on the golf course, by the pool after mowing the lawn, whatever. If you haven't tried Clubby Seltzers yet, go grab some. You won't regret it. Clubby's first variety pack is out. They've got some new flavors in there. They've got a new can as well. Find a place near you that has Clubbies. Visit clubbyseltzers.com.
And attention business owners, you need Insurica in your life. Insurica is one of the country's largest insurance brokers with 30 offices throughout Oklahoma, Texas, and the Southwest. Insurica is able to customize programs by accessing the latest information from many insurance carriers. They compare and contrast coverage offerings and pricing in order to design a cost-effective, comprehensive program to meet your business's specific needs. Insurica's clients become best-in-class businesses by working with Insurica's team of advisors to manage risk. Purchasing insurance is only one way to protect your business. Best-in-class businesses win by avoiding a loss in the first place. If your business partners with Insurica, you'll save huge amounts of money and take back control of your total cost of risk. I'm an Insurica client, and you should be too. If your business wants to be best in class, connect with Insurica at Insurica.com. That's INSURICA.com. As always, Ted, kick us off. Who do you have as your winner of the weekend?
I had to go with Purdue. They're getting Drew Brees in. They've had a shakeup. Jeff Brom is out. Ryan Walters is in. Ryan Walters, spent a little time here at Oklahoma, brief pit stop. I think he was the DB coach at Colorado before that. He's young, but he's got a lot of experience. He's been coaching on the defensive side for quite some time with a lot of responsibility. He was DC, that Illinois job, with a nice turnaround there. But with Brom out, Walters, not yet able to come in and take over everything. They're in need of some help there. And Drew Brees to the rescue. And I think it's really cool that he's an actual assistant. Like, he can recruit, he can coach the players, he can be on the field with them. I think it's awesome. And I'm curious to see, like, if this ignites something with him and in coaching, and if it's something that he's going to want to continue.
Yeah, I was not teammates with him for long, but my last stop in the NFL in 2017 and early 2018 was with the Saints. And I've never been around a better leader in the locker room in my life. I mean, he had complete control of a group of 53 grown ass men. When he spoke, everyone listened.
Yeah.
And it never made sense. The broadcasting thing never made sense to me, even though he is kind of funny. Like he's fun guy to be around. But I always thought he'd get immediately into coaching. So I was really excited when this came down, because I think he could be a great coach, and I think he's the type of guy that the coaching profession needs, man. And I know he's made a gajillion dollars playing, but tell you right now, like he's going to be an awesome coach. And it's not just because he's Drew Brees, it's because his knowledge of the game. I have to imagine Aiden O'Connell, who opted out of their bowl game, is like, oh no, damn it.
Yeah.
I could have gotten coached by Drew Brees for a couple of weeks. You think that would have been valuable, Aiden?
It would have been awesome. Yeah, just to get some real world, like NFL style coaching from one of the best ever. That, I think one of the reasons he's as good as like what you were talking about is because he had some physical limitations. Not the biggest guy, not the strongest arm. So he had to make up for a lot of those, those maybe inadequacies by being ahead of the game mentally and really honing in on his accuracy. Ended up being just an incredibly accurate quarterback. So like that perspective, I think is really cool. Now, here's the thing. It's always harder. I guess I shouldn't say always harder. It's not always just as smooth of a transition to try and get people to do things the way that you did it, right? And that you know how to do it, and maybe to be able to explain it to guys in a way that they're able to relate and carry that out onto the field. So I know he's an incredibly smart guy. We'll see how that works, but that's kind of the challenge. There's really not there's more really good coaches that weren't great players than there are the obviously the flip side of that.
Story time real quick.
Okay.
My first day in New Orleans, land, you get your physical, right? You get okay to practice. I think it was a Friday. Friday
season?
practice. Yeah, in season, like late in the season, like December. And go through the fast Friday practice. Okay. I got nothing to do. Wife's not there yet. And I'm getting a workout in after practice. Drew Brees in the weight room, getting after it. I'm like, okay, yeah, dude's getting after it. Nice. Friday. He then proceeds to go in the indoor and run through the entire call sheet for Sunday in his head.
By himself out there?
He's calling every play. He's like making checks at the line, like all of it by himself in the indoor. Like he doesn't think anyone's watching. I'm like the only person there. And I'm assuming he did this every Friday. I think it was a Friday, but he's going through the entire call sheet, runs, passes. And as he's going through the passes, like he's pointing where he's going to throw the ball. I'd never seen any shit like in my life. And it was at that moment, it took me, I had been there for less than 24 hours. So I was like, oh, that's why he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Got it. He's insane. So you talk about preparation and just attention to detail. I had never seen anything like that. He was going through it all, like handoffs. Like, hey, we're running zone to the right. He's calling it. He's sending guys in motion. He's handing it off. It's like, what is happening out there? And I just sat there and watched for forever, like just lurking like a weirdo.
That's awesome. That's cool. I used to do a very similar thing, but it was in the film room. because defense, you're reacting to stuff like you can't necessarily call the play, right? So you put it on the film, you stand up in the film room, feel like an idiot at first, but as the film rolls for a full game, you make the checks, you make the call off the call sheet, and whatever adjustments you need to make and verbalize and communicate, you do it right there in as live action as you can get following the film. And I think it is the best way to prepare for a football game.
Yeah. No, and now you see like the virtual reality goggles and like some of that technology has really grown. But yeah, I'll say this. Whoever's playing quarterback for Purdue in that game, they're going to be prepared.
Going to be prepared, perhaps
be very
over-prepared. That's awesome.
Going to be very prepared. All right, who do you have as your loser of the weekend?
I had to go with the United States Congress. Okay? Follow me here.
Talking politics, just like we always do.
Talking politics. In 2019, at the time, President Trump pushed through a rule that allowed athletes at military academies to apply for a waiver, which could delay their active service requirement to where they could pursue professional opportunities in their sport. Okay. That got pushed through in 2019. Well, now, last Thursday, lawmakers revoked this rule whenever they passed the National Defense Authorization Act, Section 553 of that eliminates that. And they can no longer do that. And it's passed through Congress and set to hit the president's desk for signing soon. And wouldn't you just know that right now, a guy that opted in because of that rule, opted into playing this season at Army, had the chance to leave early, could have left early and gone to the NFL draft. Andre Carter is a first-round talent, set to be the first-round drafted player from Army since 1947. And I hate that he's being punished for doing all of the things that we want from these type of players. He was committed to this team. He wanted to graduate, wanted to see everything through, wanted to play his final year, did so, had an unbelievable year, set to be a first-round pick by most people out there. And now it looks like he's not going to be able to do that unless something happens. And I don't know that it will. So I think that is just beyond frustrating.
I'm with you. And I actually kind of went down a rabbit hole with this story the other day. So it was introduced by a Republican congressman from Wisconsin, which I thought was interesting just right off the bat, right? But they've received quite a bit of backlash for this because of Andre Carter.
Right.
Because, you're talking what,
$15 million bucks at least.
Yeah, you're talking late first, early second round. Like you're life-altering money. And it does sound like they are working. First of all, I don't know who wants this rule. Like whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, nobody wants this rule.
Nobody.
Right? Like if a guy signs up for one of the academies and ends up being a badass player, does anyone, like, maybe I'm just not thinking, maybe I'm missing something. I guess one of the thought processes is like, well, you're taking a spot from another guy that could have ended up serving the country. But what do we love more as a country than the National Football League?
Well, this is the reason it's dumb is because like a guy like this is a great beacon for the Army to get behind with the proper, like, if you manage the situation properly, like, this is a great way to still get really good, talented people into the service academies to where, you know, it's something that they wanted to pursue, but this athletics thing has really taken off for them. Like, that's like the best marketing that you could have, is that, hey, we're going to bring you along, but if you've got an amazing opportunity like this, yeah, obviously we're going to help you pursue that. Like, because like I said, this is a first round. This would be the first round drafted player from Army since 1947. So we're not talking about this being like an every year type of situation. And like, there's this massive number of guys being robbed from the United States Army to go play in the NFL. It is like a 1, 2, 3 type of thing every couple of years. So it's ridiculous that anyone would really grab a hold of the previous language and feel like it's such a bad deal for the Army that they've really got to make a point to change it in this next National Defense Authorization Act. It's dumb.
So Gallagher, the congressman from Wisconsin, obviously they received a lot of blowback, and he said that they are, quote, I will be working with my colleagues to identify a legislative fix that addresses this issue by grandfathering in existing athletes into the current system. Now, you and I agreed, like, why do you need this rule? This is one of the things that frustrates me. And, you know, I don't think that one of the criteria for what we want, like the men going into the service academies, right? The people that are going to end up leading this country, protecting this country. I don't think we want one of the criteria to be, hey man, we want you to be too athletic, you know?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is like, this should be a great opportunity for you, not a horribly, like this is just the worst publicity you could get. It makes them look awful. It makes it look like you're just looping these guys in, and you're going to miss out on really good talent potentially because of it.
Yeah. And just so people understand, Andre Carter is number 22 on Mel Kiper's big board right now.
Absolute stud linebacker. He's like
6'7", 260.
Yeah, edge, like outside backer. It's incredible.
Yeah. So I think that, and from everything I read about it, like, he's incredibly frustrated. Like, the uncertainty of what the future does or does not look like for him. Like, I kind of sounds like he's freaking out a little bit, and it's completely understandable.
Yeah,
I think it will end up
possibly like $15 million, $20 million gone.
And the thing is, it's after 2 years, right? When you're at an academy and you have to make that decision. I forget what they call it, but it's basically like, hey, are you all in or are you not? And they give them like, hey, here's your option. And with what the current rule was, where they said, hey, you can go play. Like he said, I'm in, baby.
Yeah.
And now they just changed it on it. So I think it'll end up being okay for him. I still don't like the rule overall, but
it's so dumb that that should be the blanket rule, right? That when you're in and you're signed up, you're in. That's a blanket rule. But there has to be some type of board or whatever that has the ability for a unique case to give an out. It's just, it's stupid not to. You hurt the talent that you can potentially bring in. This should be a fantastic marketing opportunity for Army. Instead, it's a disaster.
And it seems like it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I haven't heard of many people being like, it's ridiculous that guys at Army, Navy, Air Force can go play in the NFL. I've never heard anyone say that. We got to put a stop
to this.
Yeah.
I mean, of all the things that we have going on, the fact that this would all of a sudden come up to be a priority, which, by the way they crammed through this whole bill, like, we don't need to get into that. It's a travesty the way our government operates at times, but it's just dumb that this is something that someone really felt the need to dig in on.
Someone needs to ask the guy from Wisconsin, like, what's your deal, man? What? Who wanted this?
He was committed to Wisconsin and flipped to Army late.
Oh, this all goes back to a recruiting battle, huh?
I'm joking, but God, could you imagine if that was the case?
He's like, I got him back. Played the long game, got him back. No, I think he'll end up being fine, but I think that's a rule that no one asked for. It's confusing. Let's move on. And that's as political as we get on here, trying to get a guy from Army to be able to go play in the NFL. Look at us go. All right, let's move on. But first
Fidelity Bank is a full-service financial institution based in Oklahoma with tailored solutions for all your personal and business needs. Checking accounts, saving accounts, home loans, and much more. They do it all. Whether it's online banking from your computer or mobile banking from your phone, everything is stress-free with FFB. Making mobile deposits, paying bills online, and moving money to different accounts could not be easier. First Fidelity Bank provides free ATMs worldwide, making banking convenient wherever you are. They also give back to the community. FFB donates a total of more than $500,000 to local charities and educational foundations. Make your life easier and go bank with First Fidelity Bank. Visit ffb.com for more information.
And if you're a whiskey or bourbon drinker, stop what you're doing. Head to your favorite liquor store and buy some Balcones products. You got to grab some of Balcones Lineage Single Malt Whiskey. It was just voted one of the top 20 whiskeys in the world by Whiskey Advocate, and you'll be shocked by how affordable it is. Also, you got to snag some of Balcones Baby Blue Corn Whiskey.
It's made from blue corn. That's the fancy corn.
And that is why it has won more than 25 awards. Last but certainly not least, you got to buy some of Balcones Pot Still Bourbon. Its big flavors make it the perfect bourbon to drink year-round. Remember in 2012, Balcones Single Malt won the Best in Glass competition, beating brands like Johnny Walker and Macallan. This stuff is the real deal, people. If you love great whiskey and bourbon at a great price, then Balcones products are the only way to go. The whiskey may be made in Texas, but the owners are from Oklahoma. To find a liquor store that has it, visit balconesdistilling.com. All right, for my winner of the weekend, let's talk some World Cup, man. That game was amazing. I mean, I may never watch soccer again. It's not going to get any better than that.
Yeah, I came in right at the right time because it was on and I was just kind of in and out. Doing some stuff outside, came in, took a break, and the fireworks started, baby. That was incredibly intense. To me, that is peak soccer. I don't know that it can get any better than that.
I'm with you. And and it's not just soccer, it's in all sports. One of my favorite things is when the stars of the sport deliver on the biggest stage.
Yep.
And that's exactly what we got from Messi and Mbappe in that game. And you probably didn't get to watch much of the first half if you were doing work. Right. Argentina dominated the first half. They dominated like the first 80 minutes or so. I mean, and they undoubtedly looked like the better team. Now the penalty, did the Di Maria guy maybe trip himself? Yeah, but they were still dominating. But Messi ends up burying that, with them getting the penalty. The sequence of passes that led to the Di Maria goal was like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I was like, oh my God, that when people call it the beautiful game, totally get it. Totally get it. When you watch something like that, I mean, they just look so much better than France for the majority. And then it all changed, man. France found life with the penalty. And that was something the guy from Argentina didn't need to grab him the way that he did, but Mbappe buries the penalty. And then like a minute later hits, I think did they call it like a volley when he kicks it out of the air?
Yep.
Dude, that was sick. And all of a sudden you blink, it's like 2-2. It was, and the party was just getting started at that point, man.
Yeah, that's just that was the appetizer, because after that, like the extended time was like, it was slow and cautious for a time, but after Argentina scored, that was a shootout. I mean, there was guys ripping balls from all over the place, shots on goal. The handball there in the box that got the penalty kick was crazy, but there were so many things. The save late is
the kick save.
Oh my God, that was incredible. I could not believe that he got that. That was nuts. And that flying scissor kick, whatever that was on that one ball that came bouncing out, I don't know how that guy got on top of that ball, but it was headed out. It's just everything. It was crazy. That was awesome.
There was part of me, right, because Messi scores an extra time, right? And there was part of me that was, first of all, a dumb thought on that. I did not realize how important the ball actually hitting the net was for me to like react to a goal and get excited. But that French dude that was, for whatever reason, he's like 3 yards into the goal.
Right.
Like the ball's clearly across the line, but he's inexplicably just like standing deep in the goal. And he robbed us all of the moment of Messi putting it in the back of the net. It's like he scored, but my body didn't know what to do. I didn't realize my emotional reaction and my response was so attached to the ball actually hitting the physical net.
Yeah. Yep. It's, I don't know.
It was weird. I froze. I was like, I didn't know what to do.
I thought he was clearly offsides. Now, they reviewed like the later part of it, but I thought the attack right before that they were offsides by a long shot, but they never went back and talked about that one. And I hadn't seen it. Maybe there's an explanation why they don't. But yeah, the only thing I could think of is maybe that guy was in such a panic to get back and help and get on the line to help the goalie that his momentum carried him back across the line. But I was kind of thinking the same thing. It's like, it's kind of a weird spot to be in, but
like, what are you doing? That's what my reaction. I was like, what's that guy doing? But
it was a scramble as time was ticking down. Scramble. It was awesome.
Oh my gosh. And
back and forth, both sides.
The Messi goal, I had that moment where I was like, golden goal's better. Like if he scores right there, I mean, what a moment. He wins the World Cup for Argentina. Like it would have been crazy, but then we would have been robbed of all the drama that happened afterward, where I was like, no, they're definitely doing it the right way.
Like that was really the beginning of the excitement, which is crazy. Because I told my wife, I was like, well, Argentina won it. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I mean, they got the goal. They're just going to play super cautious. It's going to be really hard to score on them. Little did I know that we had like a shooting gallery coming up. It was insane.
Yeah. Now, Mbappe with the other penalty. We end up in penalty kicks. We've already had the penalty kicks conversation. We are both big fans of the drama and the suspense. And that Argentina's goalie, man, that dude's got some swag now. His celebrations were incredible.
Yeah, he was amazing. That one save that he had during the PKs was awesome. It hit him right in the chest and chin area. He almost got a couple more of them, man. It's shocking, like how fast that ball's coming, how close you are to it. Like you've got to make a move, and he's still like reacting with his feet whenever he's wrong. It is impressive.
Yeah, that was fun to watch. Now, ultimately, I think the right team won.
Yeah.
Right. With how much Argentina dominated the vast majority of regulation, but it was cool seeing Messi win it, man. I don't watch a lot of soccer, but he's one of the few soccer players I do know, and it seems like this is we talk about legacy quite a bit on here. That was big for his legacy. That was like the only thing he hadn't checked off, right?
No doubt. And he's got it now. And, obviously I do not have a a big depth of knowledge when it comes to soccer and World Cup finals, but it's got to be one of the best ever, and to win it in that fashion is something that's impressive. That's cool.
I was talking to my wife about it. That is undoubtedly the best soccer match of my lifetime.
Yeah.
I've never been watching soccer and felt like that. Now you feel a certain way with like the United States women's national team, like when they're in the World Cup final or something, you're nervous, but it was, I mean, I didn't care who won at all. And I was into it, man, like into it.
Same. And, soccer is typically, maybe I shouldn't say typically, but a lot of the times there's like one or two big moments stretched out throughout a really long game. And so it ends up not like the game doesn't necessarily become memorable, like maybe a moment or two from them become memorable. But that what I witnessed today is something that like I'll always remember that long, like the last, however, I guess it would have been 40 minutes or so of that was just like drama, one thing after another. And it just typically doesn't unfold like that, or at least in my limited viewing, it hasn't.
I felt pretty bad. And I know in the long run he wouldn't remember it, but I put my son down for his nap right before France drew the first penalty, like in the 80th minute. I robbed him of that.
I know.
And I felt bad, but he wouldn't remember it anyway. It's fine. It's fine. He's 1.5. It's fine. But yeah, awesome. Dude, that was as good as it gets, man, for soccer.
Can you imagine though, like in the stands, like the fans, like how intense it is, and to go through that if you're Argentina, to be up and it's like, we're partying, baby, this is easy, we're done. It's like, yeah, let's celebrate. And then
dude just flails his elbow. What was he doing? Tuck that thing in, man.
Take it to the face. Don't get scared.
Yeah. That was fun.
That guy was like, you want to, every now and then you do something dumb. Like I've done something dumb. I got the punt blocked against Kansas State, right? The national championship year. When I can't explain to you in a situation like that, how you're over there thinking, dear God, just win this game. I don't care what else happens. Just win the game. That's it. That I know that dude was thinking the same thing. Like, we got to find a way because this is all coming back on me if we don't.
Yeah, I'm sure there was not a happier person in the country of Qatar than that guy. Well, that was fun. That's the most soccer we've ever talked, for sure.
I know.
And it deserved it because it was that good. All right, for my loser of the weekend, thought about going with the Indianapolis Colts. Whoa. Little Saturday night NFL football. And if you didn't watch the game and you just looked at the score, you're like, what do you mean? 39-36 in overtime on the road against the Vikings. What's the big deal? They were up 33-0 at halftime. It is the biggest comeback in NFL history. And poor Matt Ryan, man, he's now the quarterback for the losing team in the biggest comeback in Super Bowl history, and now the largest comeback in NFL history. Here's a little stat for you, Ted. Since 1930, remember they were up 33-0. Teams were 1,548 1-1 when leading by 30 plus.
Wow.
Teams are now 1,548 2-1.
Jeez. Yeah, that's one of those things where when it starts to unravel and it's like there's no stopping it. It's like it's this thing is going out of control on us and there's nothing we can do.
Yeah. Now the Vikings gave the Colts a whole lot of help in that first half to get out to that 33-0 lead, but man, it was painful to watch. Oh, it was painful, but very entertaining second half, in my opinion. But my loser of the weekend, little story from the weekend, Ted. My loser of the weekend, NBA officials. Went to the Thunder Grizzlies game on Saturday night.
Which, by the way, someone told me, I was driving back from Texas. Someone told me that you were getting a lot of television time. Like you kept having players like spill into you and stuff on the sideline.
So yes. So we brought my son to the game. So when we bring my son, we've got these 4 on the sideline and 4 on the baseline. The baseline ones are safer typically, right? There's a little more distance. Well, there's this woman who's a photographer, and I mean, she may weigh 100 pounds. Maybe. Jaren Jackson Jr., who is huge, came and smoked her, dude. Smoked her, like straight in the chop, just like camera went flying, everything. So helped him up, helped her up. And then a couple minutes later, Poku comes and takes her out again. I mean, it was so good. But now she was fine. She was fine. But yeah, so I probably got some camera time from that. Yeah, there were some big bodies, and my son was just sitting there in my wife's lap, like, this is awesome. This. It was pretty funny. But so Thunder, no Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, no Josh Giddey. You know, you're going to the game, you see that, you're like, well, damn it. But didn't matter. Get to watch Ja Morant, right? One of the most electric players in the league. I think he's one of the guys in the league where it's like, hey, he's worth the price of admission, right? And he got ejected in the second quarter. And it all happened about 15 feet from me. And what happened was there were these Memphis fans sitting right by us that had front row seats. And this woman, she was wearing like a Ja Morant caricature on a hoodie. Like she was obviously a Morant fan, and Ja Morant got teed up. And then he started talking to these fans because they're like, hey, let's get going. They're down by 20. And basically, and if you have children in the car, you may want to turn it down real quick. But Ja Morant's like, hey, I'm going to get going if these refs will blow the fucking whistle. And he's just talking to him, and the ref overhears him and tosses him out of the game. And everyone, even Thunder fans, are like, what are you doing? And so I end up talking to an official because they end up right by. I was like, guys, what are y'all doing? And the ref looked like, what are you talking about? I was like, we're all here to watch that dude play. Why are you throwing him out of the game? And this is the one that did not sit well with him. And he didn't like almost toss me or anything. I was like, no one's here to watch y'all. He did not like that. He did not like that line.
It's true.
But listen, if the player, and I know that NBA refs, it is a thankless job, dude. Players are yelling at you every night, and they bitch more now than ever. Fans are yelling at you every night. Like, no one's saying, hey, you're doing great, man. You're the best. Or you're doing great. Like, no one's saying that. But you have to understand the situation better than that. No star player for the Thunder. There were hundreds of Ja Morant jerseys in the crowd, dude. I didn't realize he was as popular as he is. I mean, everyone, all kinds of 12 jerseys in the stands, and you toss him for talking to a fan just because he hurt your feelings? Like, he's not even talking to you. You have to have thicker skin than that if you're an NBA official. You have to. Like, it was so dumb, dude.
Yeah. That stuff gets really frustrating, man. Really frustrating whenever, like, I can understand some of that stuff. It all happens so fast. It's hard to make a call. Exactly. Yeah. Did he foul him? Did he not? Is he flopping? Like, some of that stuff is hard. A judgment call in the heat of the action, but something like that it's just ridiculous. Come on, man. You're right. Like, what you said is perfect. We're here to watch the superstars play. We're not here to watch your ego and you start tossing guys because they don't like the way that you're calling the game. It's ridiculous.
It was in that. So it sounds like, dude, there's a lot of people that paid a lot of money to come watch that guy. And you just threw him out of the game because he hurt your feelings. Like, I will say, one of the cooler things, that group, because I talked to that group of Memphis fans at halftime, and they felt horrible. I mean, they were like, he's the reason we're here to play, and we got him. We're essentially the main reason he got thrown out of the game, which may or may not be true. But Ja Morant's dad ends up appearing out of nowhere with Ja Morant on FaceTime, and he hands these people the phone, and like they FaceTime with Ja Morant right there on the sideline as the game is going on.
That's pretty cool.
It made me like Ja Morant a lot more. And he was like, hey, it's all good. Because I asked him what they were talking. He's like, he told him to not feel bad, like it's all good. It wasn't their fault. I thought that, I don't know how many NBA guys of his caliber would do something like that. So I already loved watching Ja Morant play, but I was like, this guy's awesome. It's pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah, he is a stud. That dude can defy gravity, man. He is explosive.
Yeah. And I wanted to watch it in the second half, Ted. Now, ultimately,
I feel bad for the Memphis people that those aren't cheap tickets, and the guy you're there to watch get tossed in the second quarter. That's frustrating.
And it's one of those things where SGA's not playing, Giddey's not playing. Like, Ja didn't have to play with how the league operates now, but he did. And it was frustrating. Now, I will say, Thunder end up with a nice, surprising win. Did not see that one coming when we saw the starting lineups. Dort was great. Isaiah Joe continues to be one of the surprise players. Just burying threes, baby. It was fun. They won, but the whole Ja Morant getting ejected kind of just ruined the vibe, man.
Yeah. Well, it's going to cost him some money too. He's got plenty of that though.
He's fine. He's fine. But, if I could talk to those refs, I'd say those little children that came to watch their favorite player will never get those memories that you took away from them back.
Ever. Never again.
Never. And on that note, episode 276 in the books. We'll have a new podcast that'll drop sometime on Wednesday. We got to decide. We got a bunch of signing day stuff to do for OU TV wise. So we'll figure out a time to get that bad boy recorded. But just a reminder, you can hear Teddy from 3 to 6 on 94.7 The Ref. You can hear me from 2 to 5 on Sirius XM Big 12 Radio, channel 375. Hope you all have a great week. Until next time, we appreciate y'all for listening. Do what you always do, Oklahoma. Take care of each other.